close your eyes for just a second. Imagine it's the year 1853. Japan has been completely locked down, isolated from the rest of the world, and totally at peace for over 200 years. But then, out of nowhere, these massive, alien-looking black ships appear on the horizon, belching thick, dark coal smoke. To the people back then who had only ever known wind and sails, this literally looked and smelled like an alien invasion. So, right, you have this huge national crisis. An unbeatable, terrifying foreign threat is knocking at the door. Who steps up to save the country? Well, you probably wouldn't guess this, but the guy tasked with handling this absolute nightmare was only 27 years old. His name was Abe Masahiro, and the fate of an entire nation rested entirely on his very young shoulders. And let me just paint a picture of how terrifying this situation really was. You've got traditional Japanese samurai armed with swords, relying on wooden sailing boats. And they are going up against giant, ironclad steamships packed with heavy cannons. I mean, it's basically like bringing a wooden stick to a tank fight. The technological gap was just staggering, and it pushed samurai pride to its absolute breaking point. Chapter 1, The Prodigy. Okay, you're probably wondering, how on earth does a 27-year-old get put in charge of the Bakufu, which was the strict military government of the samurai? Well, if we track his career, it's pretty mind-blowing. At just 18, he becomes a regional lord. By 25, he's promoted to a top minister. And at 27, he becomes the equivalent of the prime minister. That is an absurdly fast rise to power. You couldn't just buy that kind of position. Abe was a literal prodigy. And if you need proof of his genius, there's this one crazy story. When he was the minister of shrines, there was this massive, super delicate scandal involving monks and the women of the shogun's inner palace. It was a total political minefield. But Abe handled it so brilliantly, and with such cool, calm mercy, that he completely caught the eye of the top boss, the shogun. He proved early on that he could handle extreme heat. Chapter 2, Breaking the Rules. Fast forward back to 1853. The Americans are demanding Japan open its doors. Now, the hot-headed traditional samurai are furious, screaming, "Let's go to war, kick them out." But Abe, he looks at those iron ships and realizes, yeah, no, we cannot win by force. If we fight, we will be totally crushed. Being pragmatic, he decided that to ensure his country survives, he had to completely tear up the old samurai rulebook. Chapter 3, Crowdsourcing and Nation. Abe realized pretty quickly that he couldn't solve this crisis alone. So he did something we today would call crowdsourcing. Before Abe, only the shogun and a few top lords made decisions, but Abe, he asked over 700 people for their advice, including low-ranking samurai and even everyday commoners. In a super strict caste system where everyone had a rigid place, asking regular people for political opinions was mind-blowingly radical. Chapter 4, The Ansei Reforms. Knowing those black ships would be back, he kicks off a frantic race against time called the Ansei Reforms. It was an absolute blitz of modernization. He lifts a 200-year-old ban on building large ships. He creates a naval academy. He establishes modern military training. He even opens a whole bureau just to study Western science and languages. He was trying to update a whole nation overnight. But he didn't just want to build ships. He wanted to build up his people. In his own hometown, he built an academy called the Seishikan. And the revolutionary idea here was that he educated and promoted people based on their actual merit and skill, not just because they had a fancy family bloodline. We actually still have his personal writings, and they really humanize him. He wasn't just some cold political machine. He deeply believed in blending academic learning with martial arts, the pen and the sword. He knew his people needed to be educated and strong to survive the incoming global storm. And his absolute genius was in who he hired. While traditional hiring was all about your family's status, Abe hired based on pure talent. He brought in misfits, low-ranking samurai, and even a guy named John Manjiro. Manjiro was literally just a fisherman who had been shipwrecked and rescued by Americans. Abe didn't care about his status. He just knew Manjiro had seen America and had the knowledge Japan desperately needed. Chapter 5, The Lethal Pressure. But guys, all this change took a massive, terrible toll on him. Imagine the crushing stress on this young guy. On one side, you have the ticking clock of a foreign invasion pointing cannons at your shores. On the other side, you've got furious traditional samurai who absolutely hate your new methods and are actively calling you a traitor. Talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place. And, tragically, the pressure wins.
In 1857, at just 39 years old, or 37 by how we count age today, Abe Masahiro passes away. His body just gave out. Historians suspect it was extreme overwork and stress-induced illness. He quite literally worked himself to death trying to keep his country from falling apart.
Chapter 6, Bridge to Modern Japan. Even though his life was cut tragically short, the legacy he left behind is absolutely incredible. Think about those misfits and commoners he empowered. After his death, they were the ones who went on to actually build Japan's modern fleet. They negotiated peace treaties to prevent massive bloodshed. And those schools he started, they eventually became the foundation for modern institutions like Tokyo University. He laid the groundwork for everything. So it brings up a really interesting historical debate. Was he the guy who weakened and destroyed the old samurai regime by breaking all their rules, or was he the brilliant architect of a brand new era? Some old-school critics definitely blamed him for the fall of the samurai, but the reality is he planted the seeds that allowed a modern nation to survive and thrive. Which leaves us with a pretty cool question to think about. Does true leadership mean having all the answers yourself, or does it mean being humble enough to know exactly who to ask? A 27-year-old figured that out, and it changed the course of history forever. Definitely something to chew on. Thanks so much for diving into this amazing story with me, and I'll catch you next time as we explore more of the past.